It's my great privilege to welcome our guest speaker, Danelle. If you can join me on stage. Let's just give her a hand. Danelle is a very unique woman. I think she's very brave. In many areas, we are very similar. So we do things in a very similar way, which I really love. But she, apart from being a pastor's wife, she is the head of innovation and design at Sanlam head office. She's been in corporate for many years, been serving God for many years. You're going to hear all her stories this morning. But apart from that, she's raising 3 boys. I'm raising 1, so Danelle's definitely, step up from me in terms of mother, parenting. And I just have so much respect for what she presents, for her value system. She plans in advance. She's got a daily Bible reading that she does not compromise on, I know. She's just in every possible way, the woman that people can look up to, a role model, an inspiration, and just something personal, because she's working at Sanlam. When we have our pastors' conferences, she can't always attend everything, but then she comes, then she works during the day remotely from the guest house or the hotel, and then she joins our evening sessions. But almost without fail, somewhere during 2 or 3 days, her husband comes to me, just like very subtly, putting a gift in my hand from Danelle. And for me, it is just so special because we hardly ever see each other. She's a busy woman. She's got her hands full. And then she thinks about a little gift for me. It's not as if we speak weekly or even monthly. I mean, there goes months that we don't actually communicate. But for some reason, I end up with a little gift in my hand, that she prepared. And I have so many gifts that she's given me. She's a giver. She's doing everything she does with excellence, with planning, careful planning. And, it's my greatest privilege to call her a friend and to call her a partner in ministry. So I would love for you guys to stand and just to give her a warm East London welcome.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to finally be here. We've been planning this trip for a very long time, and then moving flights, and then cancelling events, and then buying new tickets, as the airlines changes, but we are here. Thank you so much for having us and for receiving us. I have some friends, I'll introduce them to you soon. I just want to start off by saying, Sonika, thank you so much for this opportunity. If you are here and you don't know Sonika, and you're looking for someone to follow who follows Christ, there's one sitting here. Sonika is a worshiper at heart, and I honor you as a friend and as an inspiration. I've seen you dance upon disappointment. I've seen you break through intimidation. I've seen you doing things afraid. You are such an encouragement to me and to many other people. We honor you here. So I'm just going to tell a lot of stories today. I don't have much to share except my life, because that's what I can bring and share with you today. So if you can help me with some pictures, that's my family up there. In a queue at Department of Home Affairs, that was our latest family picture, most recent, early morning. So that's my husband, Deval. He's praying for you now, by the way. Has been praying for you as the lead up to this conference and this event. And that's our boys. The eldest one is Maynard. He's 12 years old. And then Alvin, the friend of many with the white hair. His name is Friend. It means friend of many, and he's truly a friend of everyone. and little Luca, that's becoming quite a boy there. And then the next picture is some friends. So you will see Mariette and Arende that's sitting here right in front there, and Annerie, she was planning to come with, but she couldn't, and all our husbands. So this event was the send-off for us by our hubbies to East London, so that we all grouped our date nights and went together, and they spoiled us to send us to you. So those are our hubbies sending us. Aren't they amazing? And now I don't have proper pictures. Like some of my friends are better with pictures, but this is what I had. Mariette and Arendi, that's of us, both eating. I don't know. The events when we're together, we normally have a meal, and we share a meal, and we pray. So Mariette, don't you want to stand up just quickly? She brings a gift with her today. She's also a mother. Take a bow. A mother of 3 boys. You will notice that when you live in Malmesbury, if you have more than one child, they're the similar sex. It happens like that. Mariette also has 3 little boys. She's an entrepreneur, runs a business online, and she got Arendi and I to pose in pajamas, to sell her pajamas on social media. So if I had other pictures of Arendi and me, but those were, I didn't feel like putting us up here in pajamas. Mariette is a community lover. Everything she does is through Jesus for the community. She thinks about the people around her the whole time. She has an incredible capacity. And she's also experienced quite a bit of trauma in her life, where her husband was stabbed in their house through a burglary when she was pregnant. So if you are struggling with trauma, get to Mariette during the course of one of the breaks so that she can pray with you. And then my friend Arendi, who loves going to the gym. I was so glad that Anli didn't take me to the gym with last night. They went to the gym. I went for a massage when we were out. I feel very special and treated. So Arendi is also a mother of 3 girls. Arendi, get up, please. Take your bow and your wave. She's also a farm lady, like a true boerevrou, but she doesn't bake, or she bakes bread, but then half of the bread machine is still in the bread when she brings it to you. Because she forgot to take it out. She's a homeschool mother of her 3 little girls, and she supports her husband. If you need faith for your marriage to be restored, get to Arendi. She has an incredible testimony of how unfaithfulness in marriage did not end up in a disaster, and how God did a miracle in their marriage and restored them to an incredible, powerful couple. They invite people to Christ. That's what they do for a living. So thank you so much for coming. They're not just partners in ministry, they're really my friends, and it's such a joy to have them here. So we're going to speak about calling. Now, firstly, I want to demystify something. For a long period in my life, I thought that calling was a specific thing that I need the answer on. This is my calling. You know, like Esther, I've been called for a time such as this. You know, what is that this thing? Looking for that specific event that you need to pursue and reach. And then in my seeking, God one day told me that your calling is not a needle in a haystack. And it was such a freeing place for me. And I want to start off with that when we speak about calling, whether you know what you're called for and following that, or whether you don't have a clue what your calling is today, it's not like this little thing that you are seeking for your whole life and that you should be scared about, that you will never find it. It's not that. It's a journey. It's a journey of following Christ and saying yes every day and being obedient and responding to Him as you live your life. So I've prepared a bit of a math equation because I don't feel comfortable there in the art tables, but I feel very comfortable when it comes to calculations. So don't be scared if you're scared of calculation. So that's about the only thing that will be on my slides. It's a bit of a something plus something plus something plus something minus something. It's the level of the degree of maths that we'll enter into today. So I want to start with calling is something that's already in your heart. And how that manifested for me, I remember I was in Standard 1, like grade 3. I'm still of the previous age that has to think about what that means. And I went to my father and I said, I need a piano. It's like, you need a piano? Now, you must understand, we come from a family that from both sides, no one can play any instrument. It's like, it's just not part of us. Now, here I come as a little girl, I need a piano. He's like, what do you need a piano for? Because it's quite a need. I said, because I'm going to marry a minister, and then I should know how to play the piano in church. So a journey started for me of trying to master music. Now, really, I persisted for a long time, up till high school. But then I realized there's other ways to be a minister's wife than to play the piano. But it was in my heart early on. And another thing that happened, I was in Standard 7, grade 9, and a friend of my dad came to visit. And he worked for Sanlam. He was a legal consultant at Sanlam. And he shared about his day job. And in that moment, I decided, I almost want to say, that I want to be a legal consultant for Sanlam. And whether that's God or not God, it spoke so much in my heart about just a knowing that God placed it in my heart. So years later, I did marry a minister who also loves math. And I became a legal consultant at Sanlam. And there were times when things was really hard for me. And I was like, how do I juggle all of this? How do I keep up with all of this? And then I remembered that these things has been planted in my heart for many years. And that encouraged me to keep going in the tough times. So today I want to ask you, in terms of a sense of calling, what is in your heart? What has been in your heart for many years? Perhaps it's hidden a little bit. Perhaps it's not easy to recall that. But ask God to reveal those things for you that's already in your heart, where you can partner with Him. So I have a quote here that I want to read to you. You can't really describe the moment a seedling becomes a tree. It was not a sudden moment, but it is a million small moments. Is a tree less in its purpose when it's small? Or is it less in its purpose when it's winter, when there's no leaves compared to the full bloom? I would venture to say not. Just the same when you think about the small moments, the moments that you feel small, undefined, or even broken. Those moments are purposeful. It's growing you into who you are supposed and born to become. It's growing you into His image. And we were praying, and we had this image of ladies entering today feeling really empty, feeling really tired and spent in a way. And I want to say to you that if that's you today, you've come to a place where you will connect with God and you will connect with people and you will be satisfied when you walk out here. Have that expectation. I want to venture and say, just for your own reflection, if you have to give yourself like a point out of 10 of your wellness when you walked in here this morning, just take a moment to reflect about your body, your soul, your spirit, your joy. Where were you when you walked in here this morning? And then, if you have something, write that point down. Because even after worship now, my points look different to when I started and I came in here. So I don't know, did it raise like 2 points, 3 points, depending from how low your base was, I assume you were coming from. And continue to check on that during the day and into the rest of the weekend. Because that's an awesome tool for us to realize that when we are tired, when we are worn out, times of refreshment comes from the presence of the Lord. And it's only He that can refresh you. It's only He that can bring joy and hope again. And if you're feeling sad and if you're feeling that you're taking a lot of strain, just press on. Just press on for more because He wants to fill you up. He wants to give you joy again. So I want to tell you a story of now I had these things in my heart. You know, wanted to be a minister's wife, wanted to be a legal consultant. And then at a certain stage in my life, many things started to go wrong at the same time. And a lot of doubt entered at that moment. So there's a picture of a beach. And it's a very specific, it was taken with a BlackBerry, so the quality is not all that great. So it's from years ago. But that picture is taken from a little house in Stilbaai, where we as a family with friends went when I was at a point of my life where I felt like I'm just beyond tired. I am beyond tired. I just had my second son. Alvin was 6 weeks old at the time. I was sleep deprived. My eldest was just before he was turning 2. And my husband said, let's just go away. Let's just leave town, go away a while. Hope you can get a bit of sleep, change in scenery. And that we went to this place. And that night, I woke up with such an unction that there is destruction coming for our family. And at the same time, my husband woke up and we started praying and we decided that we actually want to pack up and go back home. And 3 days later, my eldest son turned 2. And I don't mean to make this a soppy story, but I want to give you a sense of where we are. And this was him on his 2nd birthday. He's grown up now, healthy and strong. But there was a massive attack that hit our family. So I was still breastfeeding a little one that's 6 weeks old, and this is my eldest son. I still remember how I froze the cake for his party that I worked so hard on and sent a note out to say that no more party, my son is lying in ICU. So he caught a very rare throat infection that caused him to suffocate. And the pediatrician at the time told us that he's the first child that survived epiglottitis that he's ever seen in his life. But why I'm telling you this story is we came to a place as a family where we said it's too much. It's too much to juggle work and family and ministry and the children and the attacks. We were at a place where we wanted to give up. So we knew all the things that was in our heart, but the season was hard. And there your child is lying, and you go through these silly things. I remember, I don't know why it is like that, but if I go through hard seasons, the first thing I think is, where's the open door for sin in my life? Who else does that? So I just want to tell you, if there's sin in your life, repent. But if it's hard, it's not always because of sin. Can we just get rid of that thing where we pull ourselves down and go through this spiral of seeking and seeking, what's the sin that I need to look for? But the story continued. In that same time, this was the November, after that, I started feeling very sick and ill, just tired. No, I was tired before this. Then this happened. we had to commute to the hospital because where we live, there's not a hospital close by. So you have this little one and you're feeding him in a room, and then you're sitting with the other one, and you're switching between your family. So I thought, I'm just really, really tired, but it didn't get better. I started to lose muscle function, and I just became more weak and weak. I was still on maternity leave at the time, so luckily I didn't have to go to work, but I started just to become, I just couldn't do basic stuff anymore. I would walk from the room to the kitchen, but halfway through I would need to sit in the hall because I just can't make the distance. I couldn't dry my hair. Just carrying the hairdryer above my head was too heavy for me. I didn't have the strength. So my husband had to try that. We thought trauma, lots of other things, but I ended up with the diagnosis of being diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, multiple sclerosis, at that time. And from time to time, I would be in a wheelchair in the office, and my manager would push me around. And by time, I will be more strength and more full of life. It would be easier, but it went like this the whole time. And people told us it's too much. You are doing too many things. And a fear in my heart took place to say that you can't do all these things. You are too busy. Your body can't keep up. Your family can't keep up. And I had to wrestle with God in terms of, where am I now? Because I think, I believe, I have words that this is what I should do in terms of ministry. This is what I should do in terms of the corporate, the marketplace. And I have the children. I can't erase them. So now I have this package. What do I need? What do I need to do? And we came to a point where my husband was just so emotional, and he said, let's just pull the plug on some of these things. Let's just stop. In other words, let's just compromise on what God has called us for. But in the time, it felt so easy. And I'm so thankful for people around me as well. I told one of my friends, and we were still speaking on the phone with one that was connected to the wall, you know, those phones. We would call after 8 every night because it was free, and then we'd have these long conversations. So I was having a conversation with Leah. I said, I'm going to resign. I can't go back after maternity leave. I'm just too weak. My family is not coping. My body is not coping. And praise the Lord for friends that journey with you. She only said, no. You are going to short circuit your life, because that's not what God called you for. And in that moment, I realized that I need to go back to God because I'm confused. I'm looking at circumstances, and the circumstances are not pretty. It's not looking well. But I can't go on like this. So I really dig deep, and I got this scripture way out of context. God ever spoken to you out of context? But it's still Him speaking. Yeah? So I got this scripture in Ezekiel 47, verse 12. Fruit trees of all kind will grow on both banks of the river. I think can you go one back for me? Sorry. Is that the beginning of the scripture? It is. Sorry. Fruit trees of all kind will grow on both banks of the river. Their leaves will not wither, nor will their fruit fail. Every month they will bear fruit, because the water from the sanctuary flows from them. The fruit will serve for food, and their leaves will be for healing. And in that moment, God spoke in my heart and He said, you will bear fruit on both sides of the river. And to me, that was corporate and ministry. That was what's in my heart. And in every season, every month, you will bear fruit. I want to be a tree that bears fruit every month. But what's the key? The river must flow from the sanctuary. So if you and I stay connected to the source that gives the water for life, we will bear fruit. And we will have food and medicine for healing. We'll be able to sustain ourselves and sustain others. And we will be able to do what we are called for, whatever that is. So, working on our calculation again. What's in your heart? But then what is supported by a promise of God? Because nowadays, when things go tough, and I tell you, it happens a lot with all the balls in the air, I'll just say to God, both sides of the river. Or my husband will tell me the river runs from the sanctuary. And then we know it grounds us again to say that we can do this. So we started to look for a family that has done this before, that juggled ministry and corporate and children and our stuff and made it in the end. But we knew a couple who, either the marriage fails or there's bad relationship with the children. It's not something we aspire to. And when we got this promise, we said, we haven't found those people, but let's be those people. So I want to encourage you, if you feel like what you are called for is too much for you, you've been called for it. Let me tell you, so I was sick. I started to feel better. Lots of people prayed with us. People came to our home, and God did a miracle. On my husband's birthday, a year and a half later, I picked up my child for the first time in 18 months. I could carry him. And in a moment, I got my strength back to my body. It's been many years now, and I don't take medication, and there's times when I still get a little bit of weakness in my hands, and then I would call friends to pray, but God miraculously healed me. And during that time, it's so awesome. During that time, when I realized I'm healed, I went to my husband, I said, let's run a marathon. He said, of spiritual significance. I said, no, I mean like jog. It's like, we don't jog. I said, people we're going to. And there's a picture of me finishing my first marathon after I had multiple sclerosis. It's not the prettiest, but I'm very proud of that very slow marathon, but I made it. And the point I want to make around this marathon, except the glory that God receives for healing me and the grace upon my life, is what I've learned during that journey is that we all are running a race. And some of us are running a race at 3 hours. There's people that can complete a marathon in 3 hours. I know some of them, it's not me. I think there's some of them here, I don't know, could have moved to this side. But then there's others. That runs a marathon in 6 hours. But we all complete the race. So to bring that back to our calling, whether you are a 3-hour marathon runner or whether you are a 6-hour marathon runner, doesn't matter. You just need to complete your race. So get into your bus. When you run, these people that runs with a little flag, and they say, if you want to complete by whatever time is on the flag, follow us. And we joke in our house, we use this as a narrative to say, get into your bus, that group of people that runs at the same speed of you. So for me, running a marathon in 5 hours is hard. For others, it's not. For me, it's hard. And it's okay. I need to surround me with people that do it in the same time to cheer me on, to help me to get to that race. If you are running at 3 hours, don't compare yourselves with the ones running at 6. It speaks back to that video clip, that John Bevere video clip that we watched. We all are called for different things. And you will not stand before God to say, this is what I've done. It's an account of stewardship, what was given to you. So just get that freedom that you don't have to do X, Y, Z. You only need to follow the call of God. You don't have to find a needle in a haystack. You have to say yes to God every day. And I want to tell you a story of, even though you have the promises of God, sometimes you need to grieve limits. You can do a lot of things, but then there's a lot of things that you can't do, even though they are good things. And to mature in our faith and to really achieve what God has called us for, not in a sense of striving, but to be able to do what God has called us for, we need to know what He has not called us for. And lay that aside. If it's not this, it's excluded. So start finding those things that you are not called for and lay them down. Now, it's such a powerful story where I experienced it recently. We are community lovers, my husband and I, and we always look for ways to connect with the community and to influence the people around there and build relationships so that we can share Jesus. So he would teach rugby to the great R's. We do just weird things. We speak to people at tills. We do funny things. But one of the things I did is I had a sense that God said I must stand for the governing body of the school that my children go to. Now, I work in Belleville. We live in Malmesbury. It's about 60 kilometers apart. And the Val does the picking up and dropping of the children. So sometimes people in town would wonder, do they have a mother, because they don't see the mother. I don't worry about that anymore because I know they have a mother. It was such a freeing thing for me also to let go of what I can't do. I had to learn that it's okay for my husband to do the shopping, even though it's the girl thing to do. You laugh. For me, it was terrible. One day I was crying in Spar. I was looking for the Mazina. I couldn't find it. I didn't know which corridor. Where do you find the Mazina? I had to call my husband. Waar is die Mazina? And it triggered again a fear in me, like I'm a failure of a mother and a wife. I don't even know how to shop. You know how the devil lies to us. So it's okay to work out your thing in your family. So I stood for the governing body. The night of the election, I have the names on the board. There's a row of women sitting in front of us. They've not come to vote. They're like, Danelle, Esternuizen, who's that? The next one says, I don't know. The next one says, don't know, never heard. Long story short, God called me to do it. I was elected for the governing body of that year, and I served the school in that way. And after the 3 years ended, I felt like I've written quite a few policies, which might have been useful, but no lives were changed. And I assumed that I just had to continue because there's no fruit yet. So I must just persevere a little bit. And I had a strong sense not to continue for a next term. And I was one of the few parents on the governing body who still had small enough children to continue for a while. But it was a limit that I had to grieve because God said no. It made sense in the natural to proceed. I was well positioned to lead the rest of the governing body for a new term. The school principal asked me whether I were prepared to do that. And I told him no. It was so tough for me. It felt like I've built so many good relationships, and now that it's fresh and open for God to work, I had to step aside. But I grieved that limit, and I cried about the lost opportunity, and I moved on. The next month, literally the next month, one of the teachers at school called to say, my eldest son, he has a learning disability called dysgraphia, so he can't write. He writes like a grade 1 child, even though he's 12. Now, he managed through school, but at that stage, they called and said he no longer manages, can't keep up. I need to come to the school. We need to work on a plan, either get him someone like a writer that can write on his behalf and work with him. And I sensed God saying, just your family needs an investment. So I took off from work for an extended period of time in the middle of a project, and a miracle, God made a way for me to be off. And I started engaging on things that I can do to help him. What does the school act allow? What's alternatives than a writer? Because I had a sense that it would take away a bit of his independence. And no condemnation if you allow someone to write. But I had a strong sense in my heart since Maynard was born that we should raise him independently. And to me, it felt like allowing someone else to write for him would take away his independence. So I didn't want to do that. I attended a course as if I was a teacher. It was a course for teacher. I found out all the opportunities, and now I had an idea that I wanted to pitch to the principal. So Deval and I went back to the principal to pitch this idea to help Maynard. A month after I didn't want to continue with the governing body. We had a coffee, we shared the ideas, he was all happy, we proceeded, we implemented the process for a school. Today, 30 people in that school no longer writes, but they are supported with technology because we made that investment and helped the school also. So that's an amazing story on its own. And my son is back in the top 10 of his class. Another miracle of God intervening. But during that negotiations with the principal, he told us, he said, there's such a need amongst the teachers to be encouraged. Can Deval and I not do something to encourage the teachers? I said, yeah, we can. What did you have in mind? He said he was thinking about little groups where we can journey together and encourage the teachers. I'm like, oh, we call it growth groups. We have many of those in our congregation. And a journey happened there where we could record quickly. Within 2 weeks, we wrote the content, we recorded, we edited, some edit, some recorded. And we prepared a whole series of 12 interventions for teachers, which we presented and ran growth groups. We'd had massive fruit in that school. And the point I want to make is the grieving of the limit for the governing body that felt like I didn't make any impact or any opportunity. It was like a lost opportunity for me. A month later, those relationships were used to do something completely different. And it opened hearts for the Gospels, and teachers got saved, and we started running a cycle of growth groups, and we have more growth groups running in the schools now, where the teachers are gathering around the Word to strengthen them and to encourage them. Grieve your limits. You don't have to do everything, and say yes to the things God is calling you to. Think about what's happening around you. The third one, what's in your heart, the promises of God, proximity. What is happening around you? When you walk in Spar, what is happening around you? God is moving. How can you partner with that? A while ago in our community, we had a dad who, in a very unfortunate situation, drove over his own son, killed him. Can you think of anything worse? I didn't know the family. I knew about the event, and I knew about them because it happened in the community. And a month ago, just before I came here, the boys were playing rugby, And I was standing next to the rugby field, and I recognized that it's him. But I've never met him. I walked up to him. I said, "Oh, don't know you. I'm Danelle." He said, "I'm Simon. Pleased to meet you." And I knew he didn't have other sons. He had another girl. I said, "You're watching rugby. It must be hard for you." He said, "It's so hard for me. You don't know how hard it is." And I said, "I can't even imagine." And I started to engage the conversation of his son's passing. And a ministry event opened next to the rugby field. Proximity. Expect God to move in those small moments. Why do we expect God to move? Because there's a call on each of our lives in Jeremiah 29. Seek the peace of the city where I've caused you to be carried away captive. And pray for the Lord for it, for in its peace you will have peace. Shalom. Seek the peace of East London, where I've sent you. Pray for East London, because in its peace you will have peace. So I live with this knowing that every bit of peace we facilitate in our community builds towards this. It's part of a bigger calling. Whether that's around the rugby field, whether that was the moment I went for a run, I came back, and as I went to our house, my neighbor, the wife ran out and she said, "He's dead, he's dead, he's dead." And her husband just passed away, and I was the first to arrive. I knew I'm here to facilitate peace for my city. So live with that knowing. Pray for the municipality and the area that governs your city. I want to encourage you, and it's really not a condemnation, but in our town, our municipal manager got saved after an engagement, an investment of a regular engagement with him. We started praying with him. He started coming to church. He did encounter 3. His life was turned around. Him and his wife started joining church. They're part of our cell group. He's praying for you now. He wasn't a saved man. He was a man full of anger that ran a government organization with outbursts of emotional baggage the whole time. Now, every workday in Malmesbury, the municipal manager and the tea lady that brings his tea, every morning they pray for the peace of our city. The most senior and the most junior person in that organization, because he caught on to this, seeking the peace of our city. And we've had clean audits in our area for 5 years in a row. We're one of the top 5 municipalities run in the country because we have someone that caught the idea of seeking the peace of your city. Where can you facilitate peace? In your marriage, in your neighborhood. It's just bringing a bowl of food to someone that's sick. It is just carrying a bag for someone, but engaging to seek the peace of your city. Proximity. I want to add your unique makeup and your identity plays a part out of it. Our calling is not our identity. I am not what I do. I'm a daughter of Christ. Okay? Your calling is not your identity, but your unique makeup makes a difference. And I felt strongly to share this story. For a very long period in my life, I thought that my personality was I want to use the word curse. It was like a penalty for me. You have people that's so full of fun and joy, and then you have stuck-up people like me. I always plan things. It's so boring. I can't just go with the flow. I hate it. Until I was facilitating Encounter 2 one day, and I was listening to the teaching, and it was the story of the boy with the bread and the fish that brought it to Jesus, and Jesus blessed it and used it. And while I was sitting to that story, I was thinking, out of 5,000 people, no one thought about bringing food. Who goes anywhere without packing food? Not me. No, I always have food in my bag. I have hungry boys. And in that moment, God spoke into my heart. He said, some mother packed that lunch. And it was a change in me. It was where I accepted who I was created, the way I was created for the first time. I realized some mother planned ahead and packed that lunch that Jesus could use to feed thousands, and a miracle could happen. So if you feel like your personality is prohibiting you not to have a calling, I know it sounds strange to many people, but people like me, you would realize how you wish you were different. Not the way you are. Ek brei when I speak Afrikaans. It sounds very ugly. But to accept that, rooi ribbok ram. Can you hear that? She encouraged me, Sandra. You know I'm competitive. So really just to accept your personality, to know that your identity comes from what God says about you. People say things about us. Satan says things about us. We believe things about us. But our identity should purely come from what God says about us. Then add to the mix your daily yes. Saying yes every day. I'm going to tell one story. I see that clock ticking. I'm just picking my favorite stories to tell you. One morning I was driving to work, feeling sorry for myself that I had to leave home in the dark. My children were still sleeping. And I was listening to a testimony of a lady who said she was going through a divorce. And one of the other mummies at school picked up that she was struggling. And the moment they dropped their children, this lady called her and said, "Get into my combi." And she pulled in the lady who was going through a divorce, and she prayed with her and ministered to her, and her life changed. And this whole testimony was about the reconciliation of their marriage. And I was listening to it, and as I entered the building of the parking garage of where I work, I swiped my access card for the beam to live, and I said out loud, "God, I have a combi." It's what I said when I drove into the parking day, just expressing that need for today. God used me to minister to someone. I walked to my office, put on my laptop. I was still packing out my bag, and a lady came past. And she works in my team, and she started speaking, how was the traffic from Almasbury this morning? You know, that was the conversation. And she said, you know that I was born out of wedlock, and my father threw me away, and he lives in Malmesbury. Do you know him? And she shared his name, and it was someone I knew. And she's never met him. And in that moment, a journey started where a grown woman, she was 52 years old, has never met her father, and she had this desire to meet him. And it's a sensitive situation to navigate, but I took time praying, and I went to that gentleman, and I shared with him, "I've met your daughter." And I don't have to go into the detail of the story, but a daily yes can change the destiny of families. Just say to God, "I have a combi." When you have doubts and fears, that's the less, the minus that's coming into our equation. It takes from our calling. So there's times in my life where I felt like I can't do this anymore, and doubts and fears filled my life. And I'm being very vulnerable to share that there was a stage, and it wasn't that long ago, it was 5 years ago, where in our own congregation, I felt like I wasn't valued. I felt like I was misunderstood the whole time. I just didn't fit the mold that I thought other people expected of me. It was as if my gifting didn't matter to them, and half of this is lies, and the other half is just misunderstandings, okay? But at that time, it was very real for me. And I told the fall, I said, I don't want to be in the church anymore. I want to run away. Because I just didn't feel like I'm still making a contribution. My one friend told me about a book that I should read because she's now concerned about me running away from church. The book starts, it's a pastor that writes this book, say his journey to emotional health when his wife left the church. I'm like, yeah, this is my kind of book. But a journey started and it unlocked like heaps of growth for us, in our family, as an elders team, for a leadership team. And God could use that opportunity when we became vulnerable. So when you are struggling, when you feel vulnerable, open up. Be honest about where you are and allow God to give you a fresh perspective. There was a time when I thought, I just don't have time. I just don't have capacity to deliver this baby. Thinking about your calling as a baby. And I read this scripture that says, will there be strength to bring forth the baby? And today, if you're feeling like you don't have the strength to bring forth, to give birth to this thing that God has placed in your heart, you have. You have that ability. You can make that difference. So in closing, I want to go to 1 Corinthians 1 verse 18. Let me start with verse 20. Where is the one who is wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the debater of the age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God the world did not know God through wisdom, it pleased God through the folly of what we preached to save those who believe. For the Jews demand signs, and the Greeks seek wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to the Jews and folly to the Gentiles, but to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. So it feels like a difficult scripture, but what I want you to see there is there's three groupings of people referred to: the non-called Jews, the non-called Greeks, and the called, both Jews and Greek. Now, the Jews there, the non-called Jews, they seek signs. And I want you to reflect today whether you are seeking signs, and perhaps Christ is a stumbling block to you, like to those Jews. The non-called Greeks, they sought after wisdom, insight. And to them Christ was folly. But then there were the called, the ones who preached Christ crucified. And what is the difference? What is the difference between the called and the non-called? The difference is the revelation of Christ crucified. And the moment you realize that Christ crucified, the offering of Jesus, and you wake up to that, you become a called one. Why? Because we are sent by God.